number 13 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs. I'd like to start by acknowledging that I am joining you today from the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinantan nations. Pursuant to the order of reference of April 20th, 2020, the committee is meeting for the purpose of receiving evidence concerning matters related to the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's meeting is taking place by video conference, and the proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. During this meeting, the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. In order to facilitate the work of our interpreters and ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. Interpretation in this video conference will work very much like in a regular committee meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French icon, bottom center of your screen. In order to resolve the sound issues raised in recent virtual committee meetings and ensure clear audio transmission, we ask those who wish to speak during meetings to set your interpretation language as follows. If speaking in English, please ensure you are on the English channel. If speaking in French, please ensure you are on the French channel. As you are speaking, if you plan to alternate from one language to the other, you will need also to switch the interpretation channel so it aligns with the language you are speaking, and you may want to allow for a short pause when switching languages. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, you can either click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, or you can hold down the space bar while you are speaking. When you release the bar, your mic will mute just like a walkie-talkie. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. Should members need to request the floor outside of their designated time for questions, they should activate their mic and state that they have a point of order. If a member wishes to intervene on a point of order that has been raised by another member, they should use the raise hand function. This will signal to the chair your interest to speak. In order to do so, click on Participants, which is to the left bottom of the screen next to the interpretation icon. When the list pops up, you will see next to your name that you can click Raise Hand. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. The use of headsets is strongly encouraged. If you have earbuds with a microphone, please hold the microphone near your mouth when you are speaking to boost the sound quality for our interpreters. Should any technical challenges arise, for example, in relation to interpretation, or if you are accidentally disconnected, please advise the chair or clerk immediately, and the technical team will work. Please note that we may need to suspend during these times as we need to ensure all members are able to participate fully. Before we get started, can everyone click on their screen in the top right-hand corner and ensure they are on gallery view. With this view, you should be able to see all of the participants in a grid view and ensure that all of our video participants can see one another. During this meeting, we will follow the same rules that usually apply to opening statements and the rounds for questioning of witnesses during our regular meetings. Each witness will have up to 5 minutes for an opening statement, followed by the usual rounds of questions from members. I'll be fairly tough on the time limit so that we can ensure that our round of questioning goes to its fullest extent and no one is missed. Now, before we welcome our witnesses, I would like to draw members' attention to a procedural issue rising from the committee's last meeting. As you'll recall, at the end of the meeting on Friday, May 29th, Mr. Schmale moved a motion to invite the Wet'suwet'en elected chiefs to appear before the committee with regards to its study of the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The motion was defeated by a show of hands. Pursuant to the committee's order of reference from April 20th, 2020, while meeting by video conference, motions should be decided by way of a recorded vote. As the matter was not decided in accordance with the order from the House, I would like to declare now the results of the motion null and void and put the decision before the committee once again to be decided by way of a recorded vote. The question is on the motion moved by Jamie Schmale on Friday, May 29th, that with respect to the committee's study of the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the committee invite the Wet'suwet'en elected chiefs, specifically Chief Rosemary Skintyhe Nation, Chief Dan George, Burns Lake Band, Tsilhqot'in First Nation, Chief Maureen Lugie, Wet'suwet'en First Nation, Chief Patricia Prince, Ni Tahi Boone Indian Band, Hereditary Chief Herb Naziel, Hereditary Chief Gary Naziel, Hereditary Chief Teresa Tate Day, and others, as required to provide testimony on how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected their ability to enter into open and transparent negotiations regarding land rights and title with the federal government. We will now proceed to the taking of the recorded division. Madam.
Before we proceed, I would like to inform the committee that the list of members eligible to vote are the following: Jamie Schmale, Mel Arnold, Mark Dalton, Gary Vidal, Sylvie Bérubé, Heather McPherson, Amy Baptiste, Pam Damoff, Marcus Pawlowski, Adam Van Koeverden, Lenore Zan. When your name is called, please allow a 2-3 second delay before answering. When you are recognized, please state clearly and verbally if you are in favor or opposed to the motion. Your camera should now be turned on. I will now proceed to the taking of the recorded division on the motion. Mr. Schmale.
I vote in favor.
Mr. Arnold.
I vote in favor.
Mr. Dalton.
I vote in favor.
Mr. Vidal.
I vote in favor.
Madame Bérubé.
Contre.
Miss McPherson.
I vote opposed.
Mr. Baptiste.
I vote no.
Miss Damoff.
No, opposed.
Mr. Pawlowski.
No.
Mr. Van Koeverden.
Vote opposed.
Miss Zan.
Contre. No.
Mr. Chair, I count 4 nays and 7 yeas.
Therefore, Madam
I'm
Clerk.
sorry. I'm so sorry. 4 yeas and 7 nays. Thank you.
So, in that light of that, I declare the motion defeated. And now it's time to welcome the witnesses from our panel today. And we have with us today from the First Nations Finance Authority, Ernie Daniels, the President and Chief Executive Officer, and Steve Berna, Chief Operating Officer. From the Métis Settlements General Counsel, Herbert Wayne Lear, President, and from the Cameco Corporation, Jonathan Huntington, Vice President of Sustainability and Stakeholder Relations, and Dale Austin, Manager for Federal and Provincial Government Relations. Mr. Daniels, you are up first, and you have 5 minutes of testimony. Please go ahead.
Oh,
Mr. Daniels, we'll have to restart. You'll have to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Oh, that's a tricky thing. Let me know when I'm ready to start.
We're good to go.
All right. So thank you for the invitation. We are calling you from the Westbank First Nation Reserve. The FNFA was created in 2005 under the First Nation Fiscal Management Act with all party support. We are a not-for-profit, Canada-wide pool boring institution with direct access to the institutional capital markets. We have 2 investment-grade credit ratings with Moody's and S&P, and was recently upgraded 2 notches by Moody's to AA3 stable. FNFA's rates now parallel Toronto's low rates, meaning FNFA loan dollars go farther. FNFA is mandated to issue loans to qualifying First Nation governments, not individuals, who choose to support these loans by using their own source revenue, including business revenues. Loan terms can match asset life up to 30 years. Since 2012, the FNFA has 103 borrowing members across 8 provinces and 1 territory. 63 First Nations have obtained $900 million in long-term financing, resulting in 9,000 jobs created and a money multiplier effect of $1.8 billion. FNFA loans have translated into new housing units, schools, energy projects, wellness centers, infrastructure, and economic development. These are unprecedented times. The induced economic coma of COVID-19 is affecting all FNFA borrowers. Clearly, the risk management and credit enhancement features of the FNFA did not contemplate an economic crisis as potentially catastrophic as COVID-19. Most importantly, it did not contemplate a substantial number of borrowing members being in financial stress all at the same time with material changes to revenue streams. For example, one First Nation reported a loss of $200 million in revenue and laid off 890 employees. A second First Nations business has lost $2 million and laid off 45 workers. For some First Nations, there will be a delayed impact, meaning that they will not feel the negative revenue impact until fiscal year 21-22, when their revenue sharing agreements are recalculated based on usage in 2020. Today, we are proposing to Canada to support our recommendations that focus on the needed financial relief options and economic rebound. FNFA, through its member First Nations, can be a part of this rebound. Number 1, establishing an emergency fund. The FNFA was modeled after the Municipal Finance Authority of British Columbia, which has a special fund to manage unplanned emergencies. This emergency fund would allow ongoing liquidity of the FNFA, including short-term financing to borrowing members to meet immediate borrowing obligations to the FNFA that cannot be met because of the COVID-19 crisis. 2, implement a commercial paper program. The Canadian commercial paper market is a key source of short-term financing to support the ongoing needs of a wide range of firms and public authorities. Ideally, for the FNFA to raise money to meet First Nations financing requirements, the FNFA would have to have its own commercial paper program. This could tie into the recently announced COVID-19 commercial paper purchase program. The Bank of Canada would buy FNFA paper and earn the stipulated interest rate to act as a buyer of last resort. This ensures access to funding and economic growth in communities. Monetization. We also propose Canada to work with FNFA to create an alternative financing program with a long-term commitment that supports the acceleration of community infrastructure on First Nation lands and increase economic community development. FNFA's role would be to raise financing to help fund these projects. Repayment of these financing would be by Canada through an agreement. The advantages of this innovative approach to financing housing and infrastructure are obvious. More housing and infrastructure can be built to meet today's needs. Monetization allows financing to be spread over and support all phases of the asset life cycle, which currently does not occur. Also, First Nations capacity, institutions, and accountability would be strengthened through certification by the First Nations Financial Management Board and the requirements of FNFA's borrowing structure, the rating agencies, and capital markets. Shovel-ready projects. To support the implementation of monetization and to further kickstart Canada's economy through stimulus funding, the FNFA has compiled a list of shovel-ready infrastructure projects from 28 First Nations in the amount of $540 million, which would create approximately 5,800 jobs, and we expect more projects to be submitted.
We're at time, Mr. Daniels.
Okay.
Hold the rest of the information. If we don't get it in by the end of our rounds of questioning, you can certainly submit anything that you feel was missed by letter to our clerks. Right now, we'll move on for a 5-minute presentation by Mr. Herb Lear from the Métis Settlements.
You
Herb?
unmuted me. Tanse, Herb Laird, Nisikasan, Pakchahanse Otsinya. I call on my Father God to guide me. Thank you, Honorable Chair Bertina and members of this standing committee. I'm honored to testify today on behalf of the Métis Settlements and the MSGC regarding our response to COVID-19 and its impacts on our communities and businesses. It is my pleasure to see many familiar faces here today. Many of you may know already a bit about our hidden treasures, our beautiful Métis settlements. But for those who do not, allow me a moment to explain. In 1938, His Majesty King George VI set lands aside for Métis people in Alberta by an act of the provincial legislature. 8 of these parcels of land remain and are today the only collectively held Métis lands in Canada and are represented by the Métis Settlements General Council, of which I am the elected president. It is important to note that the MSGC is not a member of the Métis National Council or the Métis Nation of Alberta. COVID-19 has challenged our Métis settlements as it has the entire country. We acted quickly to ensure Métis settlements had resources on the ground to enact local emergency plans to keep settlement members safe, at home, and physically distant. Sadly, we've had 3 elders pass from COVID-19 so far. We've been able to obtain personal protective equipment, including masks, face shields, gloves, and gowns from Alberta Health Services, with additional federal support received from the COVID-19 Indigenous Community Support Fund. We are grateful for this support, and it will help save lives. I was pleased that Minister Bennett reached out personally to ensure our Métis settlements were to be included in the Indigenous Community Support Fund and not forgotten. At the same time, our settlements are confronted with exceptionally difficult economic circumstances in Alberta, including the collapse of the price of oil. This has resulted in an approximately 80% unemployment rate in our communities. The current economic situation in Alberta has required settlements to increase the mill rates over the past 2 years by an average of 130 to 250%, driving companies away while our communities struggle to keep the lights on. Additionally, approximately 75% of resource development businesses in Métis settlements have become or will become financially insolvent. The problem is only getting worse. Recently, Alberta has also placed an acquisition moratorium on oil and gas. Regarding our Métis settlement businesses' experience with the recent COVID-19 federal supports, they are currently accessing the Canada Emergency Bank account and are eagerly awaiting response. Additionally, we are hearing reports that most settlement business owners do not qualify for the other COVID-19 business programs announced, such as the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy or the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. As well, our communities have a very low Métis settlement participation in the new federal provincial site rehabilitation program at this time. While our intent is to always have financial sustainability, we find ourselves with a dwindling economy, depleted revenues from our resource sector, and a province that is financially unable to assist. Mr. Chair and members, the bottom line for the Métis settlements is this. Should economic instability and a lack of stable revenue sources continue, insolvency will darken our doorway in less than 24 months. In order to ensure we can continue delivering essential services across all of our settlements, MSGC requires immediate and longer-term support. We're currently working with the Government of Canada and Minister Bennett for a 3-year stopgap measure of approximately $50 million per year, but the process has been delayed due to COVID-19. We have prepared and submitted an appropriate business case to support this ask, but time is extremely short and the 12th hour of financial crisis is upon us. We do not want to fall between the cracks and need your support. Mr. Chair, I would be pleased to take any question the members have of this committee. Thank you again, honorable members, for listening to our testimony and thanking you in advance for your support and understanding. Any remaining time, I yield to Chair Bertina.
Thank you very much. It's Great presentation, and we move on now to our third presenter from the Camco Corporation, Vice President of Sustainability and Stakeholder Relations, Mr. Jonathan Huntington. Please go ahead for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Cameco is headquartered in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and is one of the world's largest producers of uranium for nuclear energy, the vast majority of which, of course, comes from our extensive mining and milling operations in northern Saskatchewan. Cameco also owns refining, conversion, and fuel fabrication facilities in Ontario that are part of the global nuclear fuel cycle. Our uranium powers 1 in every 10 homes in Canada and 1 in every 23 in the United States. Cameco is also one of the world's largest employers of Indigenous people in Canada. Our success depends on the long-term positive partnerships we build with First Nations and Métis communities where we operate, particularly in the northern part of our province of Saskatchewan. Our Indigenous partnerships are examples of win-win benefits that can be achieved when a company and communities work together. These strong relationships and trust built over decades helps us respond with communities in times of crisis. Our response to the pandemic was guided by ongoing dialogue with Indigenous chiefs, along with community leaders and public health officials. It became very clear early in the pandemic that our partner communities in northern Saskatchewan were in need of significant assistance. So in April, we established a $1 million COVID-19 relief fund to provide assistance in Saskatoon and northern Saskatchewan. We granted more than 67 different community projects to more than 40 different communities totaling $1 million, plus shipped more than 1,000 care packages and PPE to northern Indigenous communities in our province. Unfortunately, it did not come close, though, to meeting the demand. We received an overwhelming amount of requests, 581 applications for more than $17 million in funding. To be clear, COVID-19 has also hit ourselves at Cameco. We put our Cigar Lake mine, our only last remaining uranium mining facility in Saskatchewan, and a portion of our Ontario operations into care and maintenance. This action was taken in collaboration with our partner communities to protect the health and safety of both employees and our neighboring communities. Unfortunately, production remains suspended at Cigar Lake. Despite these incredibly difficult operating decisions that have essentially produced zero Canadian production for us, Cameco has not laid off any employees during this shutdown. The majority of the Cigar Lake employees sit at home right now, receiving 75% pay entirely paid for by Cameco. We have hundreds of corporate office employees that are also at home receiving 100% pay from Cameco. Our mines and mills require a healthy supply chain in order to operate. Roughly 80% of the goods and services used at Cameco's operations, totaling almost $4 billion over the last decade or so, are procured from northern Indigenous businesses. The supply chain includes airline partners to shuttle contractors and employees to site. It includes contractors to deliver goods and services to our sites and communities to draw workers from. Even though our operations in the north are in care and maintenance, our northern business partners need to remain financially and operationally viable in order to be available when this pandemic subsides and we return to uranium production. Governments can help ensure the supply chain is active by investing in northern infrastructure projects to keep these businesses and their workers employed. We're really happy to see both the federal and provincial governments come together to phase and fund phase 1 of the Wollaston Lake Road, but the transition to full economic recovery is going to take a lot more. We're therefore supporting 3 shovel-ready infrastructure projects put forward by our northern Indigenous communities. They include Hatchet Lake First Nation, proposing phase 1B, phase 2 and 3 of the Wollaston Lake Road, Fond du Lac First Nation proposing widening and lengthening of its airstrip, and English River First Nation proposing a recreation complex near Saskatoon. Our northern air carriers have also been hit hard through this, yet they are vital to our industry and to the communities they serve. We're therefore asking the federal government to consider extending the $17 million in funding it is giving to air carriers north of 60 to also include those air carriers that are primarily operating in northern parts of provinces. In conclusion, we're making 3 recommendations to this committee. Number 1, the committee recognizes the opportunities that exist in northern and Indigenous businesses and consider the economic impacts to our business if these northern businesses fail during COVID-19. We also ask the committee to advocate for infrastructure investments that support northern and Indigenous-owned businesses, including 3 shovel-ready projects we just mentioned, And finally, that the committee supports expanding federal assistance to air carriers operating in the northern parts of provinces. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and we look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huntington, and thanks to all of our witnesses. So we'll go to the first round of questioning, which is 6 minutes. And my list for the first round is Mr. Vidal, Mr. Batiste, Madame Berube, and Ms. McPherson. And Gary Vidal, you have the floor. 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As usual, I want to thank all of our witnesses for appearing today. We have a tremendous panel of witnesses today, and I was going to ask the chair if maybe he would grant me 6 minutes for each of the witnesses this morning or this afternoon as I start out instead of just one 6 minute round, but I'm thinking he probably won't give me that privilege, so I better get going here. I'm going to start my questions with the Cameco folks just because you know, you are directly in my riding, doing a lot of great work in my riding, as your presentation today identifies the $1 million COVID relief fund that you initiated and your commitment to making the right decisions for the people that you serve, for the people that you employ, for the contractors and the impact on their communities is quite a great show of corporate social responsibility that you've done in Northern Saskatchewan. And on behalf of our people, I want to, first of all, say thank you to you for that. But I do have a few questions for you. You talked about the level of kind of Indigenous employment and whatever that your company engages in Northern Saskatchewan. Just wondering if, first of all, you would maybe just expand on that a little bit. Like you said, it's very significant. Give me some numbers. Give me some sense of the impact of that in my riding in Northern Saskatchewan. How many people are we talking, first of all?
Thanks, Gary, for your question. When we're fully operating, we are Canada's largest industrial employer of Indigenous people. The last yearly stats we have show that the uranium mining industry in Saskatchewan employed through full-time employees and contractors more than 1,800 people, total salaries more than $290 million for 1 year. So that's a sense of the employment scope that we have. In terms of goods and services and procurement, we mentioned in our presentation that we've procured more than $4 billion in goods and services in the last decade or so. The last yearly stats we have show that $378 million in goods and services were procured by the uranium mining industry in Northern Saskatchewan. So that's a sense of kind of the scope that you're looking at in Northern Saskatchewan. And obviously, we're very proud of our partnerships with our northern communities. It's a win-win.
So based on your knowledge of the magnitude of those numbers you're talking about, can I maybe get you just to speak a little bit of as to the impact that you think that has on some of those northern communities? I mean, as the MP for that riding, I guess maybe I would preface it by the fact that there's not hundreds of employers in the far north like that, creating those kind of job opportunities and that kind of impact on a northern riding like mine. So can you maybe just speak briefly to the impact that has in those communities, in those remote northern communities in Northern Saskatchewan?
Certainly, the uranium mining industry is a big player in Northern Saskatchewan, and we're fortunate to have those great partnerships with the northern communities. We've been operating for more than 30 years. I'll give you one, I hope, is a clear example of the importance of the uranium mining industry, but also the importance of the partnership back and forth. The Athabasca Basin, which of course is in your riding, just yesterday started to open itself for business in Fond du Lac, in Black Lake, Stony Rapids, etc. And already we're hearing from northern chiefs who want to have an open dialogue with us on what restarting Cigar Lake might look like. We don't have a timeline yet that's firm on when Cigar Lake will reopen for uranium mining, but that shows that those leaders in their first day of reopening their communities carefully want to speak with us about what that restart might look like. And it's gone a further step today, Gary, where now the Prince Albert Crown Council also wants to have a conversation with us about it. So I think that we're all partners in this together, but the biggest thing that we want to look at is making sure we protect these communities.
Thank you. And I mean, I think that speaks volumes when those community leaders are reaching out to you. It speaks volumes for the impact that you're having in those communities. So thank you for that. I hope I have just time for one more quick question. Mr. Austin, you reached out to me in early April about the struggle that Cameco was having with accessing the SUS program. I would like for you to explain to this committee if you did qualify, if you know, which I don't think you did, but why you didn't and the impact that's having on Cameco as a company. You've obviously done some great things, but I'd like you to speak towards the inability of you to maybe access some of those programs like the CEWS program.
Thank you very much. Yes, that is true. We have been looking very carefully about whether or not we can access the emergency wage subsidy program. And it looks in some months we do qualify and in others we don't. We're waiting for clarification from the Canada Revenue Agency on exactly what the eligibility requirements look like. In effect, the 30% revenue drop year over year is a pretty large hurdle to meet. And the cliff that you fall off in terms of a yes/no decision is also a very steep one. So we are in conversation with Department of Finance officials and others about the potential for graduated or proportional access to that program so that it is not a yes/no decision. As Mr. Huntington described in his presentation, Cameco is currently keeping all of our employees on the payroll. We will do that for as long as we can, but there may come a time when we need to access the emergency wage subsidy program. And we're hoping that because of the nature of our business, our need to deliver into contracts for nuclear power worldwide, that which keeps our revenue stream fairly stable, that we'll be able to find a way to access that program.
We're at time there. Thank you very much. And I have a message from the clerk that Mr. Van Couverden is next. I have Mr. Batiste on the line. Mr. Batiste?
It is Mr. Batiste.
Yes, Jaime, please go ahead. You have 6 minutes. Mute.
I wanted to give Mr. Daniels a chance to finish off his speech there. I know he was he ran out of time, so if you could just conclude in a minute or less so I can get to the questions, that would be appreciated.
Okay, thank you. It was actually, I was about to say thank you because I was pretty well finished. I just had a sentence that projected if there was more First Nations came forward with shovel-ready projects, of the 63 borrowing members, we estimated 60 would come forward, and we can estimate about $1.1 billion in projects that would create 12,500 jobs. Thank you.
Okay, so I was pleased to see the announcement today that as part of our COVID-19 response to the government, we'll be supporting FNFA with $17.1 million for interest payment relief. I'd like to get a sense of what are the FNFA's role since this crisis began, and what are the opportunities that have with funding, and what opportunities exist that we need to be looking at into the recovery phase?
Well, very good question. Thank you, Mr. Batiste. Yes, we when this the COVID-19 started, it became very clear to us that a lot of our borrowing members were going to have revenue streams that were going to be interrupted with the social distancing. A lot of them operate VLT lounges in their communities and right across the countries, or they're involved in some type of usage revenue streams, tobacco, gas, with not a lot of people traveling, the rebates. This was all going to be interrupted. So we took immediate action and went to our board and gave a few options to our board. By the way, our board is made up of our borrowing members. They are chiefs or councillors from each First Nation that is a borrower with us. So we have strong leadership at that level. So we brought forward a plan that would help us get through this time. And the board actually agreed to that. It gave us the direction to deal with it as emergencies came up. What really happened was a lot of the revenues that First Nations had from their own source revenues to service different loans and were being redirected to community emergencies. that they needed. So we worked with them carefully through that. Now, going forward, what we see is that once we are actually our borrowing members are ready to participate in the kickstarting of the economy. We know that Canada is going to need to do that. There's going to be stimulus coming, and the infrastructure gap in our communities is about $35 billion. This is it addresses a lot of things like the overcrowding, the adequate water and sewer. So we see these type of projects that need to be funded immediately in the next few years, should we ever come across a pandemic like this again in the future. So we feel that with the First Nations Finance Authority, we have the machinery in place to utilize annual government infrastructure dollars through appropriations and leverage that into the capital markets, thereby really making a big dent in this infrastructure gap. So that's sort of what we see. I'm going to ask my colleague Steve Berna if he wants to add anything else to that.
Thank you, Ernie. Just quickly, everybody, with our 63 members having $940 million, we've had a pretty good ground luck in the fact that the communities, you don't read about it in the paper, but the communities are able to manage not only projects well, but plan, maintain, and look after. So part of what we're looking at is not free handouts, but it's putting infrastructure in place that will be maintained for the useful life of the asset. And if you take a look at our loans since 2012, no loan defaults, no late payments, properly managed, no overruns on costs. So you don't hear always the good stories, but there are many communities out there that are ready to start putting shovel in the ground now. Thank you.
How much time do I have, Mr. Chair?
Less than a minute, about 45 seconds.
Okay, if you had 30 seconds to make your pitch on behalf of your organization of why invest in the FNFA with some of the recovery money, what would be your best pitch in less than 30 seconds?
Well, this would allow us to allow those First Nations to continue to be and keep in good standing, to continue to access future borrowings as they need them to really build their economy. You have to remember this: they're using their own source revenues right now to build all this infrastructure that's gone in. So $900 million is a lot of money that's gone into First Nations to build that. So with our track record, our success, we've issued successfully 6 times into 6 successive bonds, each time increasing the investor pool that we have investing, buying our debentures right now. It's international. We have investors from the U.S., from Europe, and Canada buying our debentures.
And we're at time. We're at time there.
Sorry.
Thanks very much.
Sorry, Jake.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Madame Bérubé, vous avez les paroles.
Oui, merci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank all of the witnesses and the interpreters who are essential for this committee. I am Sylvie Bérubé. I am on the traditional territory of the Algonquins, Anishinaabe, and Cree of my constituency. How does the current turbulence on the markets affect the ability of the First Nations to survive?
Mr. Berna to reply to that.
Thank you for the question. The timing is perfect for this question. We are actually next week looking to issue our 7th debenture into the capital markets. We work the same way a provincial treasury works. We work with all 6 chartered banks, plus Laurentian Bank, plus Casgrain out of Montreal. We are looking to raise close to $230 million next week. It's sold out. So it's not a question of whether there's confidence in First Nations to repay loans. $230 million is a lot to borrow. It's simply, do the First Nations have the revenue streams that they need to take their communities from the level they are now, the infrastructure level they have now, and increase going forward? So if the revenues can be increased, the capital markets will lend. So far, there has been no turbulence in relation to the FNFA's program, and as Ernie mentioned earlier in his opening statement, we actually were upgraded by Moody's, unprecedented. So confidence by First Nations in the capital markets has grown each year, and it's at the point now, if we were able to work with Canada to do monetization, I think you'll find that the investors in the capital markets will step up and support that.
Je vais continuer avec vous. Comment?
So how do you see the situation on the financial markets? For instance, if the interest rates were to go up, how would that affect your situation?
I'll ask Mr. Burnett to answer that as well.
Under our Act, in order to get the comfort of both the credit rating agencies and the investors in the capital markets, we are mandated when we go to make a loan that the revenue streams pledged to support that loan are a multiple higher than what's needed to pay the loan. It's called a debt coverage ratio. Currently, every First Nation that is an FNFA member is meeting its coverage ratio, which means the revenues that is pledged is a factor greater than its loan payments, and that has been maintained for 8 years. The question will be, how long will the COVID-19 restrictions be in place? And if they are in place longer than September, we may have to go talk with our board of directors again and find out what our authority or mandate is going forward. Currently, we are in a position where we have no deficiencies, no late payments. It's simply a question of how long this COVID-19 will shut down businesses that have been supporting the loan payments. But right now, we're fine.
Merci. Monsieur le Président, il me reste combien de temps qu'il me reste, Monsieur le Président?
How much time do I have left, Mr. Chair? My last question is still to Mr. Bernat. What does the federal government have to do to improve your access to loans while maintaining your own independence?
Wonderful question. Point 2 in Ernie's opening comments talked about establishing a commercial paper program. The purpose of any loan is to get the interest rate as low as possible so that the repayments from the First Nation communities are as low as possible, which means every dollar will go further. A commercial paper program needs 3 things. It needs credit ratings. FNFA can get those. It needs clients. FNFA can get those. Third thing it needs are investors to buy the commercial paper program, which are short-term loans borrowed every month. If COVID-19 persists and investors are not stepping up to buy either FNFA commercial paper or provincial commercial paper, we would look to the Bank of Canada to be a buyer as last resort. It's not a grant. They would buy it as an investment and be paid interest. But a commercial paper program would save all our members 1% from today. We're already below bank prime on our loans. We would go further, 1% further below bank prime. So the dollars would go further, but we simply need support to make sure our commercial paper program has end buyers in today's markets. Thank you.
30 seconds.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, sir.
As remarks, one of the other items we had was monetization of Canada's infrastructure dollars. So monetization would be a leveraging of current infrastructure budget dollars, which we could leverage into the market to build a lot more infrastructure that we need today at today's dollars.
Thank you very much. That brings us to time and 6 minutes now for Ms. McPherson. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just want to double check that you can all hear me. I did find a headset in the last minute there.
Sounds good.
And I do want to thank the interpreters and apologize that I wasn't ready to go at the beginning. Thank you, Chair, and of course, thank you to all the witnesses who have joined us today, all of our guests. I have a couple questions for a dear friend of mine. I'd like to ask Herb some questions to start with. Herb, first of all, nice to see you on the call, of course. Can you talk a little bit more about the Métis settlement unique structure and how it has impacted your ability to receive support?
Yes, thank you very much, Heather. The Métis settlements are under the provincial legislation, so we're an ameliorative program. And we need to move into our Section 35 rights. And that's what we've been working with Canada so that we can move forward in getting that type of funding. And Canada has worked diligently with 4 Métis people through the Métis National Council, and they've provided funding to organizations like that. But those organizations don't have the actual infrastructure, the actual physical community that we have, the roads, the water treatment plants, the lagoons, all of these types of things. And so we don't have anyone who's advocated for us and move that issue forward.
Okay. Well, and the next question sort of follows on that a little bit, Herb. So we know that you've negotiated a 3-year stopgap agreement. What does the government of Canada need to do to fulfill the government's obligations? And I think you spoke about this a little bit, but in accordance with the Daniel versus the Canada Supreme Court ruling.
Yes. So we've put forward a business case, Heather. No one's given us any guarantee that it will be successful. It hasn't gone forward really because of COVID, that there's no federal budget there, so nobody can negotiate with us, and our communities are headed into insolvency if we don't get something before the end of this fiscal year.
Yeah. Okay. One last question for you, Herb. Could you talk a little bit about, we know that the economic impacts of COVID-19 have run along gender lines, especially for women who work in the service industries. How can the government assist Métis women at this time?
Oh, there's again, we look for more capitalization for our SIC, that we can get our women into different kinds of businesses, and further education. Our constituents, all of the people within our communities, are sorely lacking with educational opportunities. And if we look at the statistics that are available to us, you'll see that it's very clear that we're underfunded when it comes to education.
Well, and thank you very much for that. And I also want to just express my condolences for the loss of the 3 elders in your community, and my heart is with you there. Next, I'd like to ask some questions of the FNFA, if I have time, Chair. Thank you so much. So one of the industries that we know was particularly hard hit was Indigenous tourism. And we did know that Indigenous tourism were some of Canada's fastest growing industries prior to COVID-19. Can you talk about the larger ramifications for communities' financial stability with these growing sectors unable to operate now and for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. McPherson, for that. So just for clarification, we don't lend to individual, we just lend to the First Nation bands. We operate under the Act, and that's what we're sure our eligible borrower was only an Indian Act band at this point in time. Okay. But what we've noticed is that a lot of the infrastructure that the First Nations build usually go to supporting individual businesses as they set up operations. And so the ability to pay rent is one thing that's being affected, for office space, for retail space, for anything like that. The other thing too is that in most cases, some of the bands, the First Nation bands, actually own businesses that operate tourism. They operate other service industry type of businesses. Those were really affected, severely affected. And some of their operations are pretty big. For instance, Enoch Crete, they have They have quite a big operation there where they've had to lay off pretty close to 1,000 people. So they were really affected by that. And with the support that Canada gave, it wasn't really addressing the needs of businesses that were owned and run and operated by First Nations. So I've since heard a number of recent updates, and there seems to be some effort to try to address that, and I think it would go a long ways. And we'd like to thank the Government of Canada for providing the $17.1 million. I realized what you were talking about. I hadn't heard about it until just now. So thank you for that.
That's to your time, Ms. McPherson. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're going to a 5-minute round now. And my list for questioners is Mr. Schmale, Mr. Van Couverden, Mr. Dalton, and Ms. Zan. And Jamie Schmale, 5 minutes. Go.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, witnesses, for joining. I will start with Mr. Lair, if I could. Sir, you had mentioned how number of communities that you represent rely on the oil and gas industry for a huge source of revenue, which then funds programs that you're able to provide for your constituents. Maybe could you explain a bit more about that and how, if policies come in place that potentially could hurt that expansion or development of those resources, that in turn it would hurt the people you represent?
Yeah, very easily. There's a multitude of ways that this impacts upon us. It's so because we can become partners in some of the exploration of oil and gas activity within the communities, we've done that, and so we actually have money invested or skin invested in the game. And when we have to increase our industrial tax, then we have to, in essence, pay more money as well for all of that type of stuff. And the policy at the provincial government level right now of putting a moratorium on the sale of oil and gas leases, the acquisition, again, stagnates us from doing it. And our members have outside businesses that work within the industry, within the community. So they own their own companies that actually enjoy the work from that, as well as the settlements themselves have. It could be anything from drilling rigs to trucking companies.
Well, so this actually gives your members the ability to grow and create wealth and opportunity, and then allow that to permeate throughout the neighboring communities. It's just a good story all around.
It was when there was a sale of oil and gas. Now, right. When there is no oil and gas, and where the land is what's called glacial till, that you can't farm or do anything but do oil and gas activity. When there is nothing, then it's the absolute worst has happened, the perfect storm, where all of a sudden all of your companies are faced with bankruptcy and insolvency, and all of your eggs were in that basket in your community to actually pay for everything that goes on in that community. And so when all of these companies are sitting because of COVID, because of the oil and gas going down, now all of our communities are sitting there saying we have no other money to go to.
Right.
And the province is not giving us any as well.
Right. And I don't expect you to answer this one. We have, as you know, the situation in British Columbia where the Wet'suwet'en people have elected chiefs and band council members who are running on a pro-energy, pro-gas development that see this as an opportunity to provide jobs, opportunity, and wealth for their people who in some cases don't have much opportunity right now because of where they're located. So I think that's a great story altogether. Is there anything else you want to add before I just jump over to Mr. Daniels?
Just that we were looking for the support of the committee with our $150 million ask. That's what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Daniels, maybe I can pick up where you left off just a few questions ago. So maybe you can just expand the estimation. What advantages for non-Indigenous communities exist by supporting the restarting of Indigenous businesses, or how do robust Indigenous business communities affect local non-Indigenous communities that they surround or in. That goes on to what I was just talking to Mr. Lair about.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Schmale. Very, very good question. When we are lending monies to a First Nation, we are always collecting information on the economic impact. And so far, with our $900 million that we've lent out, the economic impact that we see at a minimum is about $2 billion. And so we know the leakage that happens for every dollar that goes into a First Nation community. There's almost 95% leakage. So the surrounding economy, like the communities that are nearby, the provincial governments, they benefit quite a bit every time a dollar is spent on reserve. So in this case, when we're talking about monetizing federal dollars for infrastructure, you can bet that the Canadian economy is going to benefit almost 100%, from building materials to supplies to taxes that are paid by individuals that provide those services to First Nations.
We're at time right there. Thanks, Mr. Daniels. And on to 5 minutes for Mr. Van Couverden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Merci. Miigwech. First, I'd like to start by recognizing that I'm on the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, the Mississaugas, the New Credit First Nation, and many other nations as well. And I'll also take this opportunity to recognize that I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for an Inuit invention called the kayak. I grew up kayaking at a canoe club, and I think it's important to make some space and to talk about the appropriation. And as a white kid growing up in Oakville, I got to use an Inuit invention, got to travel around the world. And the reason I bring up my sporting past is because I find myself admittedly quite over my head as we're talking about mining and finance and procurement. I don't mind telling my friends and colleagues on this in this forum that. So my questions are going to be a little bit more sociological, if that's okay. My only experience with large mining operations has either been in the far north with a Sport for Development group, or in West Africa with another Sport for Development group, because very often these great big companies can afford to invest in really great community infrastructure, sport facilities, sport for development, for great community impact. So if your communities or institutions, or if your communities have benefited from any of that type of investment, I'm also the Parliamentary Secretary for Sport, and there's an intersectional value in talking about Indigenous sport and how we build community and how we build partnerships with big industry in order to have a great impact. So I'd ask anybody that has any insight on how we can do a better job of investing in community from the ground up, from the grassroots level, for kids, youth, for women and vulnerable people. And I just hand it over to you.
I can certainly try to answer some of that question for you, Adam. And that goes back to part of our comments to start this meeting. One of the shovel-ready infrastructure projects that's being put forward by one of our partner communities, English River First Nation, is a recreation complex just near Saskatoon, where they want to build that recreation complex that's available for youth, certainly Indigenous youth. And there is no question that if you talk to northern communities in Saskatchewan, they want to focus on their youth. And we've seen time and time again that intersection of focusing on youth, whether it's arts and culture or in sports like you, where if you focus on those youth, you invest in those communities and in those youth, you can see tremendous difference. We know that northern Saskatchewan's a particular region where it's a very young population, and it's something that I think as our company, Cameco, and our partner communities will say, we should focus on youth where we can to see them grow and develop and become great model citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Huntington.
If I could add to that.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I can give you a couple of examples. We had a First Nation in near Vancouver, in the heart of Chilliwack in British Columbia, that borrowed money and they used their own source revenues to support it, to build a sports field for their community, like a real running track, change rooms, those kind of things. So a lot of the initiatives that our borrowers are looking at is to really try to improve the lives of their people in their community. And this goes a long way with sports. Like I can talk about my community is Salt River First Nation in the Northwest Territories. They recently built a community complex, and what they do is they're teaching the young kids how to do traditional Denny hand games, those type of things, that trying to get them more involved in that. And so we see a lot of infrastructure that goes up into a lot of the communities that we finance. That it's a real community focus to try to bring that community together to really do celebrations that when I was growing up I used to see those a lot, and so now it's starting to come back. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Daniels. Mr. Lair, I saw you nodding along, and something tells me you maybe have done some sport in your life. So I'd love to hear some insight from you. Just have to unmute.
Mute me. Great, thank you. Yes, as well. There's, I don't know if you remember, but we had a great hockey player come from Fishing Lake Métis settlement, Sheldon Surrey. So we're part of the sports teams that are out there, but our communities, we find that there isn't enough designated money and set aside money that ensures that each of the different organizations can get access to the funds that are needed. And we need to work through health and social policy from Canada down into the communities so that we can give each of our Indigenous children something to dream about, that they actually have an opportunity to do some of this stuff. What I hear about the development of tracks and stuff like that is great. I have 8 communities that don't have anything that in reality for our kids to look at, that our kids, we have to go to neighboring towns 45 minutes away, and we have parents who don't have the money to take them there. Our school children, we don't even have a school that goes to grade 12 so that we can get our children to have these recreational opportunities, and they miss out. And so it's very hard to do it.
Sorry, Herb, that we went over time there. That's great. Thank you. I'm sure that we'll pick up on that. We have Mr. Dalton for 5 minutes.
Yes, hi. Just a couple questions to begin with for Ernie Daniels. Ernie, I was just wondering, what is the criteria? Might seem like a very simple question, but what is the criteria for being an Indigenous company?
From our perspective, it's if they are operating. Well, you can look at Enoch Cree. They operate a casino. They also have commercial property that they lease out, and they also have a gas bar. They have a number of different initiatives. It's where they have control of the operations. In some cases, First Nations invest into energy projects or the likes, and so that's what we're talking about. We just recently financed a community in Nova Scotia that was just getting to set up their community store, their gas bar, just before the pandemic broke out and social distancing came in place. So they were delayed in operating. So that is an Indigenous business. So a number of people that would work there lost their jobs. They didn't have the inventory to start selling. It was just the perfect timing for them to not realize what they were set out to do.
Yeah, because my understanding is that quite a few Indigenous enterprises are not, they cannot receive the COVID supports because of they're connected to the First Nations or so I'm wondering if you can elaborate on that. For example, with the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, is there a real strict rules? Is it really exclude quite a few different businesses, Indigenous businesses that need the supports?
Yeah, when it was first announced, it became really clear to us because we received calls from our borrowing members that they were falling through the cracks. They couldn't access some of their employees couldn't access the $2,000 a month, but also the wage subsidy. That was where they actually was the biggest impact. And I think over time, there was some, I guess, loosening up of the definitions to try to include them. But to date, we haven't heard how much support is actually getting to the people that really need it. And so, yeah, that's.
I must admit that I was really amazed when you mentioned $943 million are under your umbrella, your supervision as far as the FNFA, and that there's been no defaults. So that shows a tremendous responsibility. Is what's happening here with COVID, is this really potentially undermining that record, or how do you see things going forward with as far as meeting those obligations?
Well, for this year, and especially with the recent announcement that we can make our obligations this year. If COVID-19 goes to 18 months, as was initially forecasted, we would definitely start to experience some problems in the second year, because a First Nation that really relies on a lot of own source revenue that actually deals with the public quite a bit, and would be shut down from COVID-19 would be really affected going forward over a sustained long period of time. So we hope we don't get there. Hence, that's why we are recommending a few recommendations. One is to set up an emergency fund that we can have in place so that we can actually make zero interest rate loans to our members on a repaying basis. So we estimate that $50 million would be sufficient for us to weather the storm for up to 18 months if we have to.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, how am I doing?
You're at time, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
You're 8 seconds. I'll use the 8 seconds. I was at a ribbon cutting at the Six Nations first Indigenous owned Tim Hortons in Ontario. Ted Nolan was one of the owners, the great hockey player. Which brings us now, that's your 8 seconds, to Miss Zan.
You owe me, that's good.
Okay, yeah. Miss Zan, 5 minutes, please go ahead. Here, Eleanor. Madam Clerk, I'm not hearing the Ms. Zan.
Ms. Zan, you appear to not be on mute. However, there's no sound coming through.
Still no.
Ms. Zan, it's recommended that maybe on your cord, you might have hit a mute button on the microphone cord.
No.
We've got you now. Thank you.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Again, I'll start again. Hello. It's great to see all of you beautiful faces here. And thank you so much for coming and presenting to us today. Coming to you from the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq here in Nova Scotia, Truro, Nova Scotia. And I think it's wonderful that our First Nation, Indigenous, Innu people are forging ahead and, making something of their own with regards to businesses of all sorts. Now, my colleague had talked about sports, and I come from the world of the arts and culture. 30 years as a professional actor, singer, writer, director, producer, theater, you name it. Many of my Mi'kmaq and other friends, Indigenous friends, are in the acting profession. And so I'm just wondering how much of the money to these different businesses is actually going towards the creative economy, which, you know, for every $7 that's spent by government is a return of $11. So I would love to know from Mr. Daniels, perhaps first of all, what are you doing regarding the creative economy? Thank you.
So what we do with our thank you for the question, by the way. So what we do with our process, when a First Nation borrows with us, they are actually determining what purposes they would like to use the loan. It has to meet a certain eligibility of programs. Could be social development, economic development. So a lot of the borrowers are actually looking at setting up community centers, and in there they will host different types of creative things. Like I spoke of my community, the Salt River First Nation in the Northwest Territories, recently built a beautiful complex that houses a lot of like the traditional hand games. They are setting up to bring concerts into the community. It was known as a place where musicians came from. I myself was a former musician. I played in a rock band for about 20 years. And
what did you play?
I played drums.
Good for you.
So, yeah. So
you know how hard it can be to make a living as an artist then?
That's why I became a CPA.
So, you know, I have a lot of friends, you know, Graham Greene, Billy Morasti, Glenn Gould from Nova Scotia, many actors from across Canada who are Indigenous, and they're making a great living at it. And I try to say to governments on all levels, we need to invest in the creative economy in order to have creative people be able to make a living at what they love and what they're good at, and to tell our stories. What better way to tell our stories than through music and theater and art and all of the above, right?
Yes. Richard Van Camp is from my community.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So are there people who are putting money and trying to invest in the creative economy and grow these businesses across Canada?
Not so much under the model that we're working on, because we are actually trying to get First Nations to get into managing wealth. So our communities need wealth, right? So
right.
we don't have enough in our communities.
A TV series would change that.
Well, sure.
A TV series or an animation series or a series of theater, you know. I mean, do you mind if I just ask Mr. Lair for a second, because he's nodding profusely. So
yeah, that's it.
Half a minute, or go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Our communities are busy every summer doing cultural camps where we have lots of people who are great artists, who are perfect dancers, who sing so beautifully, and we just need the chance to get them out there to monopolize them, and that's the problem. Healthy communities are required. You need money to do things. If we can get our $150 million over 3 years, we can do that.
Good for you. You got it in again.
Thanks very much. If we're dropping names, I'll drop Robbie Robertson from just up the road.
Oh, well, there you go.
There you go. 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes now. Miss Michaud and Miss McPherson. Miss Michaud, you're up for 2.5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the witnesses. Thank you for your presentations. I take advantage of this opportunity to thank interpreters. It's very difficult to do simultaneous interpretation, so thank you so much. I was happy to hear Mrs. Zan and Daniels talking about arts. I'm a critic for climate change. My question is for Mr. Austin. Currently, there are a lot of disturbances, especially on the oil markets worldwide. So on a short and mid-term, how do you think the uranium prices will behave? Mr. Huntington.
Prices in the current situation. We're watching the uranium price very carefully. We've said all along that for our operations to come back to existence, if you want to call it that, we need long-term contracts to be ready to do that. We had to make difficult decisions to bring down our operations like McArthur River, Key Lake, Rabbit Lake in past years because the market wasn't where it needed to be for us to sustain those operations. So we are hopeful that we'll see, for example, McArthur River and Key Lake come back. We're hopeful that we'll see Cigar Lake come back. But we need not only the short-term spot price market to rise, but we need long-term contracts with partners that will then allow us to bring so many of our Indigenous community partners to come back with us. We're very proud of our Indigenous employment record, but we're also just as proud of our Indigenous record with our contractors. So we would like to see that price rise just like so many others would so we can see all those people return to work. But right now it's not where we need it to be. I wish I could tell you when it would return, but I don't have that crystal ball at the moment.
In 20 seconds.
Merci. Ben, je vous entendrai peut-être en peu.
I don't have much time, but the Prime Minister said that if there was a green rebound, he could fund some projects like independence towards fossil fuel. And do you think there's an opportunity there for your industry?
Time on this one, and I go to Ms. McPherson for 2.5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
There, can you hear me? I thank you very much for letting me have another opportunity here. I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Huntington, if I could. We've seen Indigenous communities across the country, rightfully, scared of the dangers of workers spreading COVID-19 to nearby communities. Could you talk, and I know you did touch on this a little bit, but can you talk about the tools you think the federal government needs to provide to help make sure Indigenous communities have what they need to be safe?
It's a wonderful question. And I would say that I don't want to speak for those Indigenous communities. I have regular conversations with Indigenous chiefs, mayors and Métis communities, et cetera. I would say that at the beginning of this pandemic, when we looked at tough decisions to be made in the month of March, for example, when this really started to ramp up for us in Saskatchewan, we made a decision March 22nd, 23rd or so to bring down Cigar Lake. And I can remember the conversations with the Indigenous chiefs at that point, and they were concerned in remote northern communities of Saskatchewan that they did not have what was available in southern communities. And I would say that the support that came from our uranium mining industry, but I would also say the support that came from health authorities started, I don't want to speak for them, but I got the sense that it brought some of the concern down to the point now where they're willing to look at reopening. I can only speak for ourselves. We sent almost 10,000 masks and 7,000 pairs of gloves and all sorts of hundreds of liters of hand sanitizer to northern Saskatchewan to help in those cases. I think your question would be best framed to those Indigenous chiefs for them to answer it if they feel they're in a spot now where they're comfortable. I will say this from a conversation I had with the chief yesterday. There's no doubt that there will not be a complete sense of ease until there's a vaccine or something that is solidly able to have life return to normal. And it's something that we look at as a uranium company right now when we have to make difficult decisions on how we're going to eventually restart our operations, because the last thing we want and those northern remote Indigenous communities want is COVID to return to their community or come to their community, because we saw what happened, and Gary Vidal can speak to it. We saw what happened in Northwest Saskatchewan when it became a very serious problem in the area of La Loche, et cetera.
Thanks very much. And that brings us to our next round of questioners. I have Mr. Arnold, Mr. Pawlowski, Mr. Vidal, and Ms. Demoff for 5 minutes. And Mr. Arnold, please go ahead. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. I'm from British Columbia. Mr. Daniels, we may have met out there. My riding spans the Shuswap, Secwepemc, and Silk Nation of the Okanagan, and it's certainly a beautiful part of the country. Mr. Daniels, I want to turn to you because you've really been focusing on the financial aspect, and I think that's where the biggest challenge is for most First Nations and all communities right now, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. When you are making investments through the FNFA, where do you see the biggest return on the dollar? Is it resource sector? Is it production? Is it manufacturing? Where do you see the biggest return on dollars in investment through that organization?
Well, thank you, Mr. Arnold. Very good question. The investments that we see where our First Nations that are borrowed from us, their best return is from the alternative energy field, anything in the resources that's regulated. You know, dare I say a pipeline, because they are regulated and they do bring a return. And I know First Nations do want to get involved in that in an equity way, but it's mostly in the green energy where they're tied to long-term contracts, either provincially or territorially or federally. Also, I'm going to ask Mr. Berna if he can answer that as well, because there are a few other areas that he's more familiar with.
Please. Yes, Mr. Berna.
Thank you. One example is in Ontario. A smaller community had an opportunity with a Fit One contract to be an equity participant in a wind farm. The amount of revenues they will receive from that wind farm will transform their community. We loaned them $117 million. They became a 50% owner in that community. And going forward for the next 25 years, their chief and council will receive steady cash flows, which allow them to build their community in the manner that they foresee for themselves. Currently, we lend mostly in the area of wind farms, run a river, and sometimes solar projects. But as Mr. Daniels said, if those areas are backed by contracts with either the provincial, federal, or territorial governments, the communities will guarantee to have a profit at our current interest rates of around 2%. There are other examples, but usually energy seems to be the most profitable one today to allow communities to realize their goals and objectives.
Good, thank you. I'll switch over a little bit. I'm actually subbing into this committee. I typically am on the Fisheries and Oceans Committee. I've heard a lot over the past few months about fishermen, harvesters, and so on not being eligible for the programs. Have any of you got connections with First Nations in our coastal communities or our northern communities that have had organizations or individuals within those communities having difficulty accessing the programs that have been announced?
Yes, we're aware of a few communities in the Atlantic in particular, especially in the snow crab industry that is highly affected simply because the restaurants are not open. And so delivering the products to restaurants were just not available over the last few months. So we definitely seen that over there.
Okay, so you're financially involved or connected in some way to those organizations to have that information as well.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
If I have time, we are starting to see phase 2 of how First Nations are getting into economic development. Instead of investing as individual communities, they are starting to group together, which will allow the purchasing of higher equity amounts and also the purchasing of larger size businesses where mean the returns on investment are larger and back to the community. So we are directly involved in the Atlantic area in discussions where 13 communities want to work together and purchase something together. Can't give any details, but we are starting to see bigger thoughts, which means bigger group of communities working together going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Time, Mr. Chair? No, he's muted. The time, Mr. Chair? I will carry on.
Something wrong with my mute button, so we're at 5 minutes
okay,
on
thank
that
you.
one. Sorry about that, Mel. Mr. Pulowski, 5 minutes.
Well, I have to start off saying, like Mr. Vancouverton, I'm a little out of my league here talking about financial stuff, and I have to say, Mr. Daniels, a lot of what you talked about is the language I just don't speak, I'm afraid. But I think specifically, you talked about wanting to have shovel-ready infrastructure projects and be able to fund them. Now, I was wondering about this. I kind of think of infrastructure projects as basically being things that you give loans, right? You have to pay back the money. Whereas a lot of infrastructure projects I think about, they're investments used by the community, but they're things that money doesn't come back from. And therefore you can't use it to pay off your loan. So I'm wondering, like, what kind of infrastructure projects you're talking about when you say you want shovel-ready projects. Is that things like you just mentioned solar and wind power projects, which certainly bring in revenue? Is that the kind of thing, or do you make loans for other kinds of projects? And I'm thinking here community centers, sports centers. In my riding, Fort William First Nations, a chronic care home. Do you invest in those sort of things, or is it only those kind of revenue generating things?
Thank you, Mr. Pulowski, for that question. We actually make loans for pretty well anything a First Nation wants to do. It's kind of a running joke we have. It just has to be legal. So it can be anything socially, economically. It can do equity into revenue generating operations. So what we're talking about in terms of infrastructure is in the First Nations communities, there's an estimate of about a $35 billion infrastructure gap. So this is like housing, this is water, sewer, this is roads, this is all of those type of infrastructures, health centers that are much needed, anything like that. So our proposal to Canada is to consider using some of the existing infrastructure budget dollars to allow us to leverage that into the capital markets so we can build more of that today. So we address a number of health issues by doing that. So the overcrowding, which can be have a deadly effect with COVID-19. The proper water, the sewer that we need to fully live healthy lives, to have the adequate facilities where somebody that's sick can go to, like a health center. So we do provide loans for those type of things right now. First Nations are funding those things with their own source revenues right now. And we estimate their own source revenue is going to be good till about $6 billion. But after that, that's a far cry from the $35 billion. So what we're suggesting will actually really help to narrow that gap significantly.
So you're saying that you suggest to throw your money into money for infrastructure that's coming from the long-standing funding agreements between First Nations and in Indigenous services, and then additionally giving loans to be able to, say, build health centers?
Yes, that's correct. That's what we call the term monetization. So it's a leveraging of dollars.
So how do they pay you back then? Because you do give loans, not grants. So
yeah. So what happens is there's usually an agreement with the government of Canada. So I'm just going to digress a bit. So right now, the majority of the loans that First Nations have are backed by revenue sharing agreements with provinces. So like through Ontario, the lotteries, they share revenues with First Nations. Each First Nation gets a certain dollar amount that they can leverage. Those are 35-year agreements. Excellent for our type of work. So, and they utilize those revenues to build that infrastructure. So it's the same thing. So we're just asking Canada to, okay, Canada, you step up now. Help us to build the infrastructure that's really needed in our communities by utilizing Canada's dollars. The way we lend to a First Nation, it has to be based on existing revenue streams. It can't be you're going to build something and hope to make something down the road. So they have to have existing revenue streams in order to build that. Hence, we have really no bad loans or anything like that because it's pretty secure.
We're at time there. Mr. Daniels, translation's asking if you could just lift your microphone up a little bit for your next, yeah, that's fine. And now we'll have a 5-minute question round with Mr. Vidal. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to the chemical folks and Mr. Huntington or Mr. Austin. I'll let you decide who wants to answer the questions. I think in your presentation, your answers to questions so far, you've been very modest as to the impact that this may have had on your own company and in expressing your concern for a bunch of your community partners and your contractors and kind of other Indigenous businesses. My understanding, though, that potentially the lack of access to the SUS legislation or the wage subsidy for your company is very significant to your bottom line. If you're willing, I would appreciate you maybe just giving us some sense of the impact that's having on you and your business in Northern Saskatchewan. The follow-up to that would be you talked about a number of contractors and other indigenous businesses that you procure both supplies and services from in Northern Saskatchewan. And I'm just curious what the impact of any of the programs or what you're hearing from the people you work with day to day, what their success has been with some of the programs and their ability to be there for you when you need them again, when you're able to mine again.
Well, I would say that we've been very fortunate with wonderful leadership at Cameco that financially we've been able to manage our company the best that we possibly can. There's no doubt, though, that the uranium market had its challenges before COVID came, and certainly COVID has added to some of those challenges. We certainly don't want that to be lost. But you're right, we have been putting some of the focus on our northern partnerships. And when it comes to our contractors, we have several what we would call key northern preferred contractors. We meet with them every second week in the middle of COVID to talk to them about how they're faring, how they're coping, are they able to diversify into some other areas. But there is no doubt that for a lot of these contractors, we're one of their biggest partners, and they're certainly wanting us to get back into business as quickly as we can. But I want to make it as clear as possible that safety is number one at Cameco, always has been, always will be. When we look at restarting our mines, we need it to be safe, and we need these communities to be safe. So I know that we've got a Cameco, Cigar Lake Restart Committee that's looking on a weekly basis as to how we look to bring these back, Gary, in the safe possible way we can. And we're not there yet on a decision, but I can tell you that as each passing week goes by, it gets more difficult for some of our contractors, and that's why we continue to say, please, as a government, look at shovel-ready infrastructure projects that can be invested in Northern Saskatchewan over the next couple of years that will help those contractors, but more importantly, help those Indigenous, or just as importantly, help those Indigenous communities gain employment. That's what this is all about. It's one big circle in Northern Saskatchewan. We're a small part of it, and we want to make sure that the rest of the circle is looked after.
Thank you. In your presentation, you also talked about the airline, the help to Northern Airlines, and specifically those north of 60. But then you referenced those in Northern Saskatchewan, which don't quite qualify under that north of 60. I assume we're kind of talking about the Transwests and the West Winds and those people that serve those northern communities that you're very much a part of. Can I maybe just get you to talk a little bit more about the impact that all of that has on those northern communities, your business specifically, and the impact that those airlines, the help they might need in that?
Well, we certainly covered already the amount of employees that are tied to the uranium mining industry. We're very proud of the fact that we strive to have RSN, which is Residents of Saskatchewan's North, to be a significant portion of our workforce. And we talked about how more than 1,800 people are employed on a yearly basis, according to the latest stats we have in the uranium mining industry in Saskatchewan. We're an industry where we fly our workers to work and home from work. That's the model we have. For all those folks that are on this Zoom call that don't know our uranium mining business, it's not like you hop in your car or you hop on a bus and you drive to work. You fly to work and you fly home. We need healthy, stable airlines. And we have partnerships with Transwest and Westwind Air Aviation, along with Good Spirit Air on the eastern part of the province. We need those airlines to be stable and successful for us to continue to operate. That $17.3 million that came from the federal government to help air carriers north of 60, I'm sure that's great for them. But what we're trying to have the government focus on at the same time is a lot of those communities, Stony Rapids, Black Lake, Fond du Lac, et cetera, they fall just below that line. They're at the 59 or 58. We certainly would like to see some help come to our airlines that are just below that line, that they can get some aid, some help, so they can be stable and moving forward the best way they possibly can, because we need those airlines, but so do those communities. The last point I would make is Fond du Lac First Nation, Hatchet Lake First Nation, two areas we draw employees from. They are now in a position for the next several months where you only get to those communities if you're flying or if you're going by barge. We won't see ice roads for 6 or 7 months now. So that shows the importance of the airline.
Thank you. And 5 minutes now, Ms. DeMoff. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And to our witnesses, I just want to thank all of you. This is a truly fascinating panel and really important testimony that you provided to us. I'm today in the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, and I'd like to acknowledge that. Mr. Daniels, I'm going to start with you. You've said that every dollar invested in First Nations is equal to 6 in terms of impact in the general economy. I wonder if you could just quickly expand on that a little bit.
Well, thank you, Mr. for that question. Yeah, so recently there was a study done in Manitoba, southern Manitoba, that looked at leakage. So this is for every dollar that's spent in. And when they did their study, they looked at net contributing to the economy. So the First Nations in Manitoba, they are net contributors to the economy. I think the general population sometimes thinks that we are net takers from the economy, but we're actually not. We actually there's tremendous amount of revenues being generated as a result of activities going on in First Nations communities. So
would you be able to send us a link or
sure.
A copy of that study? I have some specific questions on commercial paper program that you want to do. That's normally unsecured debt, right?
I'm going to get Mr. Berna to answer that.
Okay.
Sorry, no, commercial paper is the secured debt. It's backed up. It's backed up by FNFA's name. So all of the safeguards in our act, all of our money in the bank account called liquidity, and our credit rating backs it up. So it is the same as the government of Canada raises money, the provinces raise money, or the cities raise money. So it is a way to raise money, but it's backed up by credit rating agencies auditing your numbers and putting out a report to investors for the security of those. So it is definitely backed up by the assets and the safeguards we have in place.
Okay, so I was looking at some of the term sheets you've got on your website, and you issue debt now on the capital markets, right?
And is that how all of your debt is, or is that how all of your capital is raised to provide these loans?
We have two types of loans. Our first loan is called a line of credit program, and that's money available every day. Currently, we raise that through a banking syndicate. So the chartered banks raise the money on our behalf, add 1% on for their own profit. They are profit-based, and then we relent to communities. The commercial paper program would bypass needing the banks and allow us to raise the money on our own name, which means that 1% that we pay to the banks would now go to ourselves, which means we could reduce the loan rate to our communities. Dollars go further.
So what needs to change for you to be able to do that? Is there legislative changes that are needed?
I don't know what's needed in the Canada's end. The Bank of Canada has opened up, or it's protected issuers, the provincial issuers and municipal issuers, saying if you cannot raise the monies, we will buy what's left over to assure that the amount you're looking for can be raised. So we are looking for the same treatment. It would be an investment by the Bank of Canada. If the interest rate we paid on our commercial paper was 1%, the Bank of Canada would receive that 1%. So it is a backstop to ensure the program would be successful, and we can pass those savings on to the communities to allow their dollars to go further.
So when Mr. Huntington was talking about English River wanting to do some infrastructure programs, could they access financing through you?
Yes, they can. They any First Nation that's under the Indian Act at the current time can access loans for us. There is a process. They need to request scheduling. It's a voluntary process to work under the Act. So from there, they need to have a financial performance certificate that's done by our sister organization, the First Nations Financial Management Board. Once they do that, they're eligible to borrow from us. And we assess them, look at their revenues, and based on that, we leverage those into the capital markets based on how much it is.
So I've got 15 seconds left. You're looking for $50 million or $150 million for an emergency fund. Do you currently have any funding coming directly from the Government of Canada that you can hold like that?
We do have a credit enhancement fund. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the certain safeguards under the Act anticipated like a 1 or 2 First Nations defaulting and going bad. But with the pandemic, it could have been all of them. And it just couldn't sustain that. So that's what that credit enhancement fund was established for. So the emergency fund is something different.
We need to move on. Thank you very much. 2.5-minute round. Madame Bérubé, vous avez le parole.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I shall go back to my question. The Prime Minister said that the projects which would reduce the dependency of Canada on fossil energy products would go down. So do you expect more mining projects in Quebec?
That's it for my questions.
Yes. So in our industry, in the uranium mining industry, we actually do not, at this time, do not see any opportunity for mining, uranium mining in Quebec. It's my understanding that the government of Quebec has a moratorium on uranium mining at this time. So in order for us to consider new mining operations in the province of Quebec, the government of Quebec would have to change their position.
Merci.
Thank you. Do I still have any time left, Mr. Chair? Just a minute.
Que devrait faire le gouvernement fédéral pour...
What should the federal government do to support Indigenous businesses in communities with very unreliable internet connection.
I'm not too sure if that's for me, but that to me would be a shovel-ready project that would qualify for a shovel-ready project. Because I know where I was born and raised in the Northwest Territories, they definitely need high-speed internet up there. I was on a call, a Zoom call like this, and we had to use Zoom for the video and go on a telephone for the audio. Very difficult to do. So there's a definite need as to at least build that across northern Canada, the northern parts of the provinces, because more and more people are going to be working from home now. That's what I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. 2.5 minutes, Ms. McPherson.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to just acknowledge what Mr. Daniels has just mentioned about making sure that we have accessibility for Northern Canada. My colleague is unable to join this committee today because she is unable to join and does not have the capacity. I wanted to just follow up with Herb, with Mr. Lair, from a question that I'd asked Mr. Huntington. When we look at the recovery from COVID-19, do you feel like you've had a meaningful voice as Alberta lays out its reopening plan? Do you have any specific concerns for your communities that you don't think have been addressed by the wider provincial plan? And maybe if you could talk a little bit about anything you've heard from other Métis leaders across the country, if they have any insight into that as well.
Well, we haven't had a lot of collaboration with the province on the plan itself. It's more of a paternalistic approach, to be very honest with you. That is the act is set out that we deal with, the Métis Settlement Act in Alberta. It's very paternalistic. The minister tells us exactly what we can and can't do, signs off on absolutely everything. So we'd really are an afterthought in lots of this, to be straight up, that we've gotten more financial support from Canada than we have from the province, to be honest.
And have you heard from others across the country, other leaders?
We've heard a little bit, not a whole lot, to be honest. Like I said before, Heather, we're not part of MNC or M&A. I have had discussions with Audrey from President Audrey from the M&A, because we didn't want to double coverage some of the members in our communities, to make sure that there was no duplication of service, so that we could ensure that funds were spent appropriately. And they haven't had a lot of consultation provincially in Alberta as well. I'm not sure what other leaders have done in other provinces.
Thank you. And now I just had one last question for the
Just 10 seconds, I'm sorry.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
New Democrats in the House are still fighting to make sure that Canada fully adopts UNDRIP, the United Nations Rights on Indigenous People. Can you talk about the importance of that? That's almost an impossible task to give you at the end. I'm so sorry.
We're right out of time, but perhaps we could get a written submission. Mr. Schmale for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate that. Maybe I'll just quickly ask Mr. Austin. I believe you were talking about it with my friend from the block regarding resource development, and I know you're specifically uranium. But do you see the regulatory environment in Canada in regards to mining something that is able to secure investment and confidence within the regulatory process?
Thank you for the question. I would say yes. One of the benefits of operating in a country like Canada is that we do have regulatory systems that are well known, that are governed by the rule of law. People understand what the rules are, and they understand the processes that are going to need to be engaged with in order for projects to get off the ground and come to fruition. Now, that's not to say that it is an easy regulatory process, but it is one that is certainly stable and one that I believe most companies can operate within.
So you see, when you start the process right from the beginning, you can see, if you follow the steps, you can see light at the end of the tunnel.
We certainly believe, and again, we haven't tried to open a new project under the new regulatory system. But if it operates as it should, we think that there is a path there. Again, there are always bumps along the road, and some of those bumps may be, quite high. But yes, we think that there is a regulatory process that is well known and well understood in Canada.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to quickly jump back to the FNFA, if I could quickly. Just building on what we had talked about today regarding the investment dollars put in and how they multiply because of the effect they have within investments and business, in income, that type of thing. What models are you using to look forward into attracting? You touched on it earlier. I'm just trying to word it properly. So you had touched on it about an hour ago regarding the ability to secure a good credit rating so that you are able to borrow at a good rate. Tell us about the portfolio and how that allows you to do that, and what your plans are in the future.
Very, very good question. I'll start it, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Berna quickly. So we, again, we use existing revenue streams, and every time we get an increase in a rating, so an increase in a rating would come as our borrowers increase, the amount we borrow increases also. And from there, in a good track record, we get an increase in the rating. So the increase in rating really allows us to lever more. And so, for instance, if a First Nation is looking into a resource project and it pays a certain rate of return, so every time we reduce our credit rating, it's a more of a return for them. Mr. Berna?
Thank you. There are 300 First Nations, which are half of the communities in all in Canada, that are attached to our Act. 103 of those 300 have been awarded FNFA membership. There's another 197 to go, stating that the amount of monies we will likely be borrowing in the future will be increasing, which means the impact on their economies and the towns and cities around them will also increase. Part of our credit rating, AA3 with Moody's, A+ is Standard & Poor's, is followed by a word. The word in both cases is stable right now, which is a future indicator of where the rating agencies think we will be next year, the following year, the following year. In order to keep that stable word, we're going to have to make sure we have the safeguards and our clients have the revenue streams in place to ensure that their coverage of the loan payments continues into the future. So as we grow, we want to make sure our safeguards are solid and stay in place to allow that growth to continue, which should help the Canadian economy in general.
And as you choose to attract other communities into your management system, that's just an ongoing measure that you're working on, your organization's working on. I know I've talked to many within your organization that continues to keep that rolling so that you are able to leverage those dollars.
We'll leave it at there, Mr. Schmiel. We're beyond time, but perhaps the answer will still come up. To conclude, we have Mr. Batiste will take us to time. Jaime?
Okay, I'd just like to thank the witnesses for joining us today. Their knowledge was great, and it's sometimes difficult to understand the complexities of finance, but I thought you guys did an excellent job, all witnesses. I just have a kind of a recommendation that I'd like to just put it to the committee for consideration. But one of the oversights, I think, that of all of the witnesses that we've called, we haven't called any Indigenous youth. And I think that they're a large part of the population, the Indigenous youth of Canada. And I know that many of the organizations out there have youth councils attached to them. And I'm wondering if at some point we could hear from some of the youth around COVID, around some of the issues that they're dealing with, and seeing if it's something that's worthwhile listening to and having our committee hear, maybe for the first time, from these youth councils about what they're going through. And I just wanted to kind of put that out for discussion.
Herb, were you going to comment?
Yes. Yeah, we do have a local youth group. There's one in Fishing Lake that's called Red Sash, and they are meeting. They are talking about these issues. We actually had CBC doing a bit out there not long ago. I think it was a week ago. They came out and they saw our people out there, and the youth were there as well. And I think you've got it bang on there, that there are a tremendous amount of our youth. And as settlements, that's what we have. We have a very young population, and they don't have a chance to talk, and they need that chance. Half of our population is under 25, sorry.
Well, Jaime, thanks for that. We're just about out of time. I'm sorry to cut away from yours, but perhaps I can circulate with our other members how we could incorporate in our work plan a youth component, and so we can do that offline if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
I'm getting a nod. Thank you. So I'm going to wrap up the meeting right now and thank our panel. And as Pam and others have mentioned, what a terrific 2 hours we've had. And from the First Nations Finance Authority, Mr. Daniels and Mr. Berna, from the Métis Settlements, Herb Blair, and from Cameco, Mr. Huntington and Mr. Austin. It was solid information all the way, and I wish all of our meetings could go this well, because it's, and the other thing I find remarkable as the chair is we've got people from all over Canada sitting in this virtual room working toward a good end. And I hope that we can continue and come up with some answers in a very difficult time. I think it's an honor for us to have the privilege of being able to deal with these questions, but now we've got to get to the answers. So once again, thank you all for being a part of a wonderful meeting. And it's now time for me to say that this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Walalan.